Hi Marvel fans! Today I'm going to show you how to make a removable spider sense effect for your Spider-Man action figure. The measurements in this video will be scaled for a modern Hasbro Marvel Legends Spider-Man, but you can adjust the measurements to fit other scales as well. To start the project, you will need clear plastic packaging from a Marvel Legends box. All you need to do is just rip that plastic right off the cardboard. Scissors, a ruler or T-square, a compass to draw a circle. I bet you haven't touched one of these since geometry class. A marker, pencil, paper, tape, low temperature glue gun, glue stick, paintbrush, your choice of colors of acrylic craft paint, and your choice of either paint, sealant, or a varnish. First, we need to start off by making a pattern for the spider sense effect. I measure up from the bottom of my paper and make a mark at 0.6 centimeters, 1 centimeter, and 2 centimeters. Then I draw a straight line up from the bottom of the paper to the 2 centimeter mark. Next, draw a horizontal line at the 0.6 centimeter mark and another one at the 1 centimeter mark. At the bottom of my paper, I'm going to measure and mark a line at 0.8 centimeters on either side of that first vertical line I drew. Then I'm going to make another pair of marks centered on that same vertical line, but this time they're going to be 0.5 centimeters on either side of the line. Next, draw vertical lines up from the 4 marks you just measured up to the topmost horizontal line. This will be the horizontal line you made 1 centimeter up from the bottom of the paper. Now, I know this is starting to sound a bit complicated, but in this video I will include a picture of the pattern with the measurements once I finish drawing it out, and the measurements will also be in the video description. Next, I use my ruler to make sure I set my compass so that the pointy part of the compass and the tip of the pencil on the compass are 2 centimeters apart. Then I draw a circle at one of the very first marks I made. This is the mark that is 2 centimeters from the bottom of the paper. I don't need a full circle though. I stop when I hit my horizontal line that is 1 centimeter from the bottom of the paper. Next, I'm going to round out the corners on the tops of my vertical lines. This bottom part of the pattern is actually going to be forming the clasp that will hold the effect on Spider-Man's neck. And so, since Spider-Man's neck is not a square and it's round, we're rounding out the corners here. And here's what the pattern looks like with the measurements. Cut out the pattern with scissors. Apparently I forgot to record this step, so use your imagination. Next, take your paper pattern and make sure the bottom part of the clasp fits around the back of your Spider-Man action figure's neck. If the paper has to bend to fit around his neck, you'll need to cut the inside of the clasp a little bit thinner to give it some more room. You want the paper to be just a little bit loose on his neck. You may notice that the plastic from Marvel Legends packaging has 2 sides that are bent at an angle. We're going to use one of these folds to our advantage. Take your paper pattern and fold the clasp where it connects with the partial circle shape. Now your pattern kind of looks like a basketball hoop in a backboard. Place the fold of the pattern on the fold of your plastic and tape it down. Flip the plastic over and use a marker to trace around the edge of the pattern. You could skip this step if you wanted to and just cut around the pattern itself, but by using a marker you don't risk cutting the pattern and then you can reuse your pattern again later. This marker I'm using is just a normal thin Crayola brand one. Peel off the pattern from the plastic and you could see I have a faint outline from the marker. Next, I use scissors to cut around the outline. Now you may want to use a pair of old or cheap scissors for this step, because if you cut much plastic, you will dull the blades. Now that I have the plastic cut, I just bend the clasp along that preset fold to get it to a right angle to the partial circle, and make sure that it still fits on the back of my Spider-Man's neck. Again, you want this to be just a bit looser than the back of his neck. Now that I'm sure the clasp fits on my figure, I'm going to trim the outside edge of my clasp to make the whole clasp a little thinner. We could have made the plastic of the clasp a little thinner when we drew the pattern. Then you risk the thin clasp breaking when you're trying to cut it free from the sheet of plastic. So I find it's easiest if I cut it thicker the first time and then trim it down so it won't be so noticeable on your figure. Remember to trim only the outside edge of the clasp and not the inside edge where the clasp connects to the back of your figure's neck. Now we have our plastic trimmed, but it's not going to stay on Spider-Man's neck like it is. We're going to fix that by applying a thin layer of hot glue to the inside edge of the clasp. I'm using a low temperature glue gun for this step because my fingers get pretty close to the glue, and my low temperature glue gun doesn't cause burns if my lack of coordination causes me to stick my fingers in the glue, which is probably going to happen. After the first layer of hot glue has cooled, I test the clasp on Spider-Man's neck. If it's too loose, add another layer of glue. If it's too thick, you can easily peel off the dried glue with your nails or a knife and try again. I've discovered that this effect stays on my figure's neck best if I put a little peak of glue on the two inside tips of the clasp. Here you can kind of see that the glue is a bit thicker at the two inside tips. After your effect fits and stays pretty well on Spider-Man's neck, you next need to paint the effect. It's easiest for me if I use a marker to outline where the back of Spider-Man's head is on the back side of the effect. This gives me a guideline on where the paint should be, and I can wipe the line away later. For the painting step, I paint the front of the partial circle so that when the effect is laying on my paper, the clasp is raised to a 90-degree angle to my paper. You can use whatever color of paint you want to make the Spider Sense effect on your plastic. Spider Sense has been drawn with a great deal of variety in the comics, so pick whichever style is your favorite. For this one, I'm going to go with a lightning bolt shape. I start off by painting my first lightning bolt at the very top of the effect, so that this one will be directly above Spider-Man's head. You can draw any number of these shapes you want, but for me, it's easiest if I paint the two bottom ones next, and then fill in the remaining space. You can leave your effect one color, or you can outline the Spider Sense with a second color. Here, I'm using red to trace along just one side of the lightning bolts. After your paint has dried, you can place the effect back on your Spider-Man to see how it looks. If you want more space between Spider-Man's head and where the paint begins, you can easily scrape off some of the paint with a fingernail or knife. Because the paint is so easy to scratch off, we want to help protect it with some sort of sealant or varnish. I'm using a matte varnish on mine because I don't want it to be shiny. After everything is dried, cut out the empty space between your Spider Sense lines. Just don't go too far past the bottom tips of your lines or you're going to make the whole piece fragile. Now your Spider Sense effect is complete and ready to fit on your figure. Originally, I thought about making this piece fit on Spider-Man like a headband, but I decided to go with this design because you can take pictures of your Spider-Man with his head looking to the side. I also have a viewer photo to share today. Third Rate Photography sent me this gorgeous picture from his Flickr account of Ghost Rider with a posable chain weapon. Thanks so much, Third Rate Photography, for allowing me to share your awesome photo. If you want to make your own Ghost Rider a chain weapon, check out my playlist of action figure crafting videos and I'll show you how. I love seeing viewer photos of my projects that you've tried yourself. Just let me know if I have your permission to share your photos and what name I should use to give you credit. You can send me links to your photos in the comments below or just send them to me on a social networking site. The links to my social networking info are in the video description. Also, I just want to say thanks so much everyone for your comments suggesting what projects you'd like to see next. I have this huge spreadsheet of your ideas, and I'm going to be doing my best to work through them, but feel free to suggest more. Also, feel free to check out some of my other videos for more action figure crafting and Marvel fun. If you'd like to stay updated with my content, feel free to subscribe, and thanks for watching.